Yeah, the call wild's always bringing me home. Call wild's always bringing me home. Call wild's always bringing me
Perfect.
home.
Okay. Well, hello, wild ones. Welcome to another episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. I am so excited for our guest today, Elyse Wells of Seeking Numina. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So, you are a native Greek Egyptian high priestess, and you are someone that helps people showcase and connect with the sacred wildland that we all share together. So, I'm so excited to hear a little bit more of your backstory. I know you go over that in your own podcast, but just for listeners here, what brought you to this space of wanting to become a high priestess and helping people along their own journey?
So, my background I have three nationalities. I'm Greek, Egyptian, and American. So, I was blessed to be raised in a really multicultural environment. And when I was a kid, we would visit Greece every year and spend at least 2 months there over the summer. And then when I was in high school, we moved to the Middle East. So I was able to really kind of get in touch with all aspects of me, all these multifaceted differences differences and similarities that I have in my path and my background as a person. And my spiritual journey sort of was part of my life, like just my upbringing. Like I was really fortunate as a kid that I had a spirit guide. Like not everybody knows they have one or continues to engage with them. I think a lot of kids have them and speak with them, but don't continue that relationship for any number of reasons, often societal ones.
Right.
But for me, like I had an imaginary friend and she just never went away. And so she over time kind of led me to understanding that she was a spirit guide. And that was a really powerful sort of like truth that I carried. Like, and I also, as somebody who was more unique, I grew up in rural Pennsylvania mostly. So like that was, my parents wanted us to have the best education and everything we could have. So they raised us primarily in the US for education purposes. So, but I was in like rural PA. So I was definitely the most unique kid in class. Like I was the only person who had more than one nationality in my school. I was the only person who had left the country until I was in like fifth grade. And then one kid he didn't leave the country, he went to Hawaii. It's still America. But like, it was like the first time someone else traveled. And so I was kind of like already, I got comfortable really young feeling different. Like I don't fit in. And that's, I think, the hardest part for a lot of people finding their spiritual journey is like, how do I rationalize the weirdness of this? Like, how am I going to still be accepted? How am I going to fit into mundane reality anymore if I go down this rabbit hole? Or we have these crazy meditative experiences, or we have these amazing moments out in nature. And, we sometimes keep them to ourselves or keep them small because we don't want to stand out. We don't want to be seen as other for them. I got comfortable with that very young. So I had that gift. I now know it's a gift. It was very hard at the time.
Of
30
course.
years later,
Yeah.
I can look back and be like, that was good. But it was very hard at the time. Even living in the Middle East, I was then weird for a totally different reason. Like, oh, you're from rural Pennsylvania. Like, what's an Amish person? Like, just like all those sorts of things. I had to constantly, I constantly, everywhere I went, honestly felt like an ambassador for where I had come from, even though I didn't fully identify with any of those places. Like I'm not just American. I'm not just Greek. I really have a hard time even identifying as Egyptian because it's such an unsafe place for people like me to live. Like not just women and Western women, but also like witches. They literally still persecute witches. They have executed 2 witches in the past 10 years.
Whoa.
So like people are like, oh, why don't you live and eat? I'm like, no, it's not like that. Like it's not, Greece has its issues with what I do, but it's not unsafe to be there doing any of it. So fast forward to college, I was ready to do more formal training. I was doing a lot of spiritual work my whole life. I never even knew that's what it was. Like I would astral travel when I was living in the Middle East. I really did not resonate with the land there. The connection to the land was severed by the way people live their lives. America has its issues with that, but I mean, Bahrain, where I lived, is an island. It's very small. And there was only one tree on it. On the whole island, there was one tree.
Wow.
And it was like an 8 mile into the desert kind of drive, and like that was it. The rest of the whole island was like a lot of it was new. It was reclaimed land, which is code for we dug up and killed coral reefs to stack it together in this mess of slop that will just gradually sink back into the sea anyway. Like, so it just energetically was really awful to be there. So I taught myself, with the help of my spirit guide, how to astrally travel back to Pennsylvania. Now I was like 14. Like I was just like, oh, I just want to be there. And so I would close my eyes and I would lay in my bed in the Middle East and I would pretend, quote unquote, travel to be there in Pennsylvania. And I would like get myself into the bed that I had in Pennsylvania, into what the world was like there. What does the air smell like? What do I hear outside? Oh, is my neighbor mowing the lawn? Like I would really try to like visually, sensorily like get there. And then I would get up on the astral plane and walk around and go outside and like spend time with the nature in Pennsylvania. So I developed my spiritual practices out of a survival mode. And then when I went back to the US for university, I was able to formally practice witchcraft. Witchcraft always called me. I never had like the new age pipeline of like,
Right.
oh, I'll just do light work. Like I was never afraid of any of it, so I just went right for the big stuff. So I I found a lot of good books at my local library, and about 3 years into solitary practice, I found a coven through a mutual friend. I was an actor at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair. Fun fact about me. So while I was there, I met a lot of practicing witches who were like well out of the broom closet, and I was like, I want that. I want to be out of this broom closet. Like that sounds great. So one of them introduced me to a coven, and I started training with them. And so we're the eclectic fairy tradition of witchcraft, and I'm a high priestess in that lineage. I completed all the degrees of initiation there. And in 2021, I moved overseas to Greece to work more deeply with land 100% of the time, like really become like I say, like a full-time witch. Like I was like, how can I really do
this
this?
full time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started bringing pilgrimages to Greece in 2022, and yeah, started my author career in 2021, and here we are now. So yeah, I have a very holistic path though, because it's, yes, I'm an eclectic fairy initiate and high priestess. I have that initiation behind me, but I also have built a lot of my practices like into what I call the path of the sacred wild, because it's bigger than just witchcraft. You know, I also did my master's degree with a focus in modern spiritual studies, like kind of the answering the question of how did we get here with what we consider mainstream spiritual practice. So I bring in a lot of that academic sourcing, and then living in Greece, I go to the land, and a lot of the practices I teach now are channeled with the land. They're directly what the land there is saying, hey, last time you guys were here, because that's what's interesting is the land just is like, oh, good, the priestess is here. Like the land isn't like, oh, what lineage are you from? Oh, where
Right.
did that? When? Like that's human stuff. Like the land is like, oh, good, person with drum,
Right.
fantastic, been waiting for you. So, so
Breaks
yeah,
it
it's
down into more simple understanding the land, right? Like,
yeah. We project so much onto it. Like I've had people be like, oh, I don't know if my offering was enough. And I'm like, the offering of it was enough. Like it was great. The land isn't that worried about, oh, I wanted 1 cup of oats and you brought me 3/4 cups. It's like
right,
it's
right.
for
Yeah.
us.
Right, exactly. Which is why I really love what you do, because you've created, like, genuinely created like your own pathway to, like, your own spirituality, and like literally building that little by little, and just trusting what's intuitive inside of you and being like, you know what, this feels good, and like having that connection, which is why I really like relate to what you're doing. I really love that. I also grew up loving witch books. Like I grew up Irish Catholic at a Catholic school, and all I couldn't stop reading about witchcraft, witch books. Like I remember really wanted a pentagram, but like a ring, and it had the all like little stones in it that symbolized earth, air, fire, water, spirit. And I remember asking my dad, I was like, can you get me this ring? And at first he was like, no, that's demonic, like you can't get that, like, because it was very Irish Catholic, trying to beat this kind of like, no, this actually represents nature. Like when I think of it, it's like reminding me of the ocean, it's reminding me of the forest, volcanoes, like,
Yeah.
So I really relate to the way that you connect with the wild and the sacred and yourself. It's just really powerful and really beautiful. So and you also have a book coming out in November, which I'm very excited to get as well.
Yeah, Sacred Wild, an invitation to connect with spirits of the land. And it is up for pre-order. I don't know when this episode will come out, but pre-orders help so much. Like that is what determines a book's success is pre-order numbers. Like once it comes out, it's great. People can read it at their leisure, but pre-orders really help it reach people and bestseller lists, hopefully. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This will probably come out like next week or so. So
oh
yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
great. Plenty of time to pre-order, everybody.
Help Elyse out, and it's going to be a really awesome book, which kind of leads me into my next question for you. So uh, one of the biggest premises that you teach is the connection and how do we connect with our sacred land. So for people listening that maybe want to start doing it or don't know how, like for you it was so intuitive. I feel like for me it's so intuitive, but maybe for other people that want to try, it's not as intuitive. How do they begin that step and like the process of wanting to connect with the sacred land around them?
Two important things to remember. One is you don't have to own any land. So
Mhm.
like some people are like, "Oh, I'd love to connect with land, but I don't have any." And it's like, "What do you mean? Do you live are you the Jetsons? Do you live like floating in the sky like 85,000 miles above?" No, you live on the surface of this planet. So you do have land around you. You're good. You can connect with it. It in fact already wants to connect with you, which is my second point. Like the land already knows us. It already knows us. It notices us walking to and from our cars. It notices us picking the weeds or forgetting to. It notices us, sitting on the porch or walking the dog, like whatever it is we're doing. The land is very aware of us. So all we have to do is reach out. And I encourage people to remember that land is our neighbor. We cohabitate with land. So just like you might have that neighbor diagonal from you that, if you make eye contact, you're going to give them a little wave and they'll give you a little wave back. It's the same thing with the land. You can have as much or as little relationship with them as you want, but you want to give them some acknowledgement. I think there's a fear around working with land spirits that comes from like fairy fears, like, oh, is
Mhm.
it safe? Are they dangerous? Is it that? Is it this? And the answer is like, it's very safe. There's no danger to working with land. The land already knows you're there. It's already waiting probably for a little more engagement. They're waiting for an awareness from you that you're aware that it's there. And then a relationship can really start to be formed. Um, and I think a lot of the fairy tales and the stories that come out of, that make people be a bit more wary of connecting to land, we have to remember that those stories were written to make people be safe and responsible with land.
Right.
So they show us worst case scenarios so we don't do them. They're not written to be like, and then this guy went and talked to the fairies and actually went really well, the end. Like, what story is that going to be? It's not going to be one.
That's true. Right.
so,
Stories are
so
trying to tell us something, right? Like they're trying to give us
yes.
some lesson. So there's got to be some juice to the story, I guess.
Yeah, there's a moral imperative hidden in every fairy tale. So
Right.
that's why they sound scary. I always say, like, Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf eats the grandmother. Do we go around our whole lives fearing a wolf will eat our grandmothers? No. We know that's not the wolf's main priority. So it's not even a
Right.
basic food group. So that's the same with land. Like 9 out of 10, not more than that, 9.999 out of 10 interactions with land are going to just be peaceful and uplifting. And actually, I always say land is our greatest ally for protection because it already shares that interest. It wants itself to be safe. It wants its characters and like all of the other spirits that work with that are on land to be safe. So to begin a relationship, if you're like, all right, I'm ready, let's do it. I want to introduce myself. That's actually all it takes. I recommend taking your cup of coffee in the morning if you have time for this. If you don't, do it after dinner. But if you have, I hope everybody has some downtime in their day in their home. When
Yeah.
you have that, take 5 minutes, bring a cup of water for the land and something for yourself, and walk outside. If you have a porch somewhere you already can sit there. If you want to do this while walking around the land and kind of maybe choosing that place, if you have absolutely no land out of your own, I didn't for many years until this February, actually. I
Mhm.
never had any space of my own. Like we had a balcony 5 years ago when I lived in Baltimore. Um, that's it. Really in my life I haven't ever had like my own land to work with. So what I would do is I would just go out and about and walk around and see where I was called to. So when I was living in Greece, I would have there was a couple of rocks at the seaside that I would particularly like to sit with. There's also a couple olive trees I met, and then there was a couple places that were like a short drive away that I would try to go to. So maybe this is somewhere you have to drive a little bit or take public transport to get to, but truthfully, I want this to be simple. So go outside. If you have an outside place, if you live in an apartment complex, and when you're sipping your tea, your coffee, just send out an intention from your heart space. And if you're new to this sort of thing, basically what that means is like you can actually put your palm on your heart, your dominant hand, preferably, as we call it in witchcraft, your giving hand, and just focus on the love you feel for land. Focus on what it's like when you have that moment of knowing what the birds are saying to each other. Or if you've never had that, imagine what that would be like to have that awareness of all the layers of life happening in a park or in your yard. And when you feel that love, just kind of push it out towards the land itself. Really let the land receive that, and then introduce yourself. I'm Elyse. I really would love to know more what messages you have, and tell the land what you need. Come to me. I'm here to help. Show me what you need and I will help. And you'll be surprised how fast that works. The land will be like, oh, glad you asked. Actually, there's some vine over here that is choking the heck out of me. Some tree calls you over. Or maybe it's, there's, like for me, this actually happened recently. There was a little area of the yard that I kind of just neglect. Like I just ignored it. It's like behind our shed. And the land like drove me back towards it and was like, there's like, it gave me this feeling of like tightness. And I was like felt like something was being suffocated. But if you look at the land, it just looks like a bunch of mud on the ground. And it kept drawing me and drawing me and drawing me. So it's like this corner where the fence meets behind the shed. And I was like, what's it mean? Nothing's tight here. And I look down and there's this like piece of metal sticking up. And I pull on it and it's actually like a tarp with like chicken wire of some sort that are like, it was basically buried in mud. So the land was being like stifled by this plasticky stuff. So I called my husband and we actually like ripped it all out. And I literally could like feel the land like, like I could feel it like be like, oh gosh, thanks. Like that was annoying as heck.
Wow.
So it was a simple fix, but it had to show me,
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
That's like I've like had like a couple of little rituals. Even this morning I was sitting on my back porch. I always have this like little, I get my son who's 3.5 ready, get his breakfast done, like he's sitting and eating. I take care of my dogs and like start, a round of coffee, and then I go and sit in the backyard like when I'm letting my dogs out, and I'm just observing the birds and what's around it. And like I noticed this little cardinal family, this little northern cardinal family, and like the mom and the dad and the baby, and I've noticed them yesterday. It's like just being, and then I also when my son goes to school on the bus, we sit outside, and we have these beautiful big white hydrangeas in front of my house, and there are so many bees. But it's funny that like we talk to them every day, the bees, and we're just like, good morning, bees. Like, there's the saying, like tell the bees the happenings of what's going. And
Yes,
I'm like,
telling the
okay,
bees.
Georgie's going to school. He'll be back later. And, and even my son now, he's so cute. He's like, bye, bees. See you later. And like, they used to like be very aggressive, and now they're so calm. And like, we could sit right next to the flowers, and we all like are very harmonious together. No one's ever gotten stung or anything like that. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, like that. I feel like those are the type of things, like notice what birds, think about like the worms in the dirt. Like there's birds living and having families and happenings. And there's, you hear bird fights, especially with the blue jays around me. They're so aggressive, but like recognizing those things, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And I feel like the other thing is too, is that land is for everybody, right? Like land has its own sovereignty, that it doesn't recognize our human made, borders or things like that. So everybody is welcome to connect with whatever land is near them.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing too. Like your land spirits are going to be the same as the guy next door and the guy across the street. Like really, like land doesn't follow, borders the way we do at all. So the bigger borders, if you're like, oh, well, I wonder where the land spirit starts to feel different, you probably already know that. Like it's a vibe thing. Like our towns have a vibe to them that is very much foundationally contributed to by the land spirits that are on it. And
Mm.
actually, talking a little bit more about your bees. Oh, and I think I didn't even finish what to say about the water. So when I said about bringing out a little coffee for yourself, a little water for the land, you just offer that land the water. So you can pour that out wherever you feel it
Mm.
needs it. And when you ask the land, like, what do you need from me? You might even be led to a really dry looking fella that needs a little drink. So that's the point of that water is it's an offering that you never have to question. Some people get very in their head like, oh, is this offering good for the land, bad for the land? What if a dog eats it? What if water is safe? It's a good one. Go for it.
Yeah.
Um, and what you were saying about the bees. So in Sacred Wild, in my book, I have like a terminology guide of the different types of land spirits. Even as you're listening, you're probably like, I wonder what the land spirit is. Like, is that always a fairy? Are they different than fairies? And I kind of break down how they're the same but different. Fairies
Mm.
to me are a type of spirit of the land, but they're not the spirit of the land. Like
Mm.
when I'm talking about land spirits, like capital L, capital S, it's like every land has like one residing undertone. It's like, and it is like an ecosystem of spirits. It's an ecosystem,
Yeah.
and it's quite almost a stratosphere of systems of how these spirits kind of engage. But the most present spirits that the land can present us are, I call them emissaries. And
Hmm.
bees are a number one emissary of the land. Like the biggest ones are the pollinators, and then certain critters. And I also have like another category of animals or insects um, that I call vassals, which vassals of the land are like a specific animal or group of animals that you see at that particular land. So, like for example, we've got vultures around here, and maybe when I'm out in my yard, I would have a vulture fly overhead, and it's a message. But if I go to Susquehanna State Park up the road from me, vultures are a true vassal of the land there because they are all over that. Like they own that land. Like that is the presiding animal there. Here at my house, the most presiding animal that I would see, because I'm very close to the Susquehanna River, is the heron. We have herons all the
Mm.
time. They're like the main vassal
Beautiful.
of the land. Yeah, oh, it's
Yeah.
unbelievably
They're
beautiful.
so cool. Those like they're I remember we were taking a hike recently and like we watched this heron just fishing for like 20 minutes. It was so beautiful. They're eerie and they're
Yeah.
cool, but yeah.
Yeah. They're deep, deep creatures. We have one, our road actually is right where Mama Susquehanna ends and enters the Chesapeake Bay. So, like, literally at the end of our road. And right at the end of this road is also like a giant heron, like massive. And he lives there and he has his own little nest and his own, like, he has really cultivated this special spot under this bridge. And to me, he's like the ultimate spirit of the land. Like the land itself, these spirits of the land are very subtle. When we work with a deity, for example, we can Google it and there's going to be thousands of depictions of what they look like. They're very humanoid and they have names. Land spirits aren't like that. They most of the time are not going to have names. Very rarely, like in a land like Greece or Italy, where there's like a long tradition of working with the land, you might find like, oh, that spring is named after the spirit of place, named so and so. But most of the time, especially in North America, we don't have names. The natives might have, but they've been lost to time. And, we always are, people are always worried about appropriation and stuff. Working with the land, even if you're on native land, is not appropriating. If you wanted to like steal the exact practice of a native people and only do that, that would be appropriating. But simply
Right.
speaking to the land you live on, by all means, like go for it. In fact, the land is really kind of begging for us to do that. So,
Exactly. I feel like that's
yeah.
a really important point, right? Like, which is why I really love what you do and why I think it's really important for people listening. Like, it's all about how like you are connecting with nature. So, like especially even you said like what time of day, maybe it's night for you. Like there's all
Yeah.
these things that are very specific to what's empowering to you. Like, it's don't go and steal somebody else's like cultures, like, you know, traditions and rights and everything like that, when you can create your own. I think that there's a way to be able to like respect or you know, connect with obviously different cultures and learn about them and things like that. But you know, you know, it really reminds me of the spirit animal thing, right? Like in,
Hmm.
you know, I think I was just like, because I do a lot of art with animals and everything like that. So, and you know, I'm like, what about the terminology like spirit animal, right? Like is bothersome. And like the more I read into it and like tried to dig deeper into like where it comes from, like who uses this term. And I think that the biggest thing is that like when people are masking, you know, just taking like Native American like symbology and like taking like a sacred headdress and like, you know, just using that as marketing and advertising for, oh, spirit animals, things like that. That's like culturally appropriating and like, you know, making like, you know, you're taking something that's sacred, you don't know anything about it, and you're just using it as a marketing ploy and not going deeper and trying to learn more about it or something like that. You know, there's definitely like a line and a balance, but knowing what's around you and your own land, like that's different. Like there's definitely ways to go about it that are respectable and not appropriating somebody else's culture.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it goes back to that being a good neighbor principle, which is funny
Right.
because that is also an expression of fairies, where people call them the good neighbors instead of saying the
Mhm.
word fairy. But really, like if you had a neighbor across the street who was a different culture from you, and you like ignored them because you're like, I don't want to appropriate your culture by saying hi, like it would be bizarre. Like we would
Yeah.
just never do that. So it's the same with the land. Like it is begging humans, land across the globe is begging us to pay attention and talk to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's like the opposite. I actually think it's disrespectful to be like, I shall not ever speak to the land I live on because I'm not meant to live here. Like,
Right.
just because our ancestors did heinous things and thousands upon thousands of people suffered, that is not the land's fault. It was never the land's fault. So why
Right.
would we take it out on the land by ignoring it when it's trying to get our attention?
Yeah, and I feel like for the most part, that's what, like, you know, I've talking one of my previous episodes was with someone, and she's Ojibwe elder, and one of the biggest things that they want, like what, you know, Native people mostly want is just, or at least Native American is what I'm speaking about, just to take care of the land. Like that's
Yeah.
their whole message is like, okay, hey, like this is how it is now. Like we can't go back and change like, you know, America as it is like right now or, you know, whatever, but like just why don't we have clean water, good
Yeah.
shelter, like taking care of the land, not having pollution. I don't think it's like that crazy of an ask either, you know.
Yeah. 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 It's wild. It's wild. And I think all of the healing that the land needs, that the people need, that America needs, like North America as a continent really needs, is going to come through working with the land. You know, all
Mhm.
of those atrocities generations back that you and I and our listeners had absolutely no hand
Yeah.
in, we can right those wrongs through love of land.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's interesting to me too, and I wonder how you feel about it is like, you know, obviously there's reintroductions of wolves taking place in
Yeah.
Colorado and things like that. So, you know, and I always think about like, does the land miss some of those animals that, you know, used to be there that are gone, that are really supposed to be there? Like I specifically think about like the red wolf. I don't know if like you're familiar with that, but like I think about like especially you in Pennsylvania how, you know, there's only like coyotes and bears and things like that now, but like missing that red wolf there. I wonder like what do you think about like the land and like reintroduction and, you know, does the land miss those creatures, you think?
Yeah. I think it's yes and also no, because where I come from, like how I'm thinking of that answer is like the land has a different version of time than we have.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
and like even Americans versus British people, for example, have like a very different view of time. Like when an American says, "Oh, that's old," they mean something that's like maybe 100 years old. When
Right.
someone from England says something's old, they mean it's about 1,000 years old. Anything under 500 is not old to a British person. Like, just in my experience, I lived abroad in England for a year as well. Like, it's just not going to be old to them. And then in Greece, it's the same. It's even more extrapolated. Like, they'll be like, oh, that's just the old temple up there, and what they mean is it's 2,000 years old. But they wouldn't call anything else around them old. Like, it's just like, oh, that's that. Like, even the churches that are 1,000 years or 1,500 years old, they'll be like, oh yeah, there's a pretty old church over there, but it's a different, like, they don't call it like old. Like, there's a different word we
Mhm.
use for something that, like, I guess it's ancient, but it's more like, yeah, it's just like the time scale of people even is different depending where we live. And when the land thinks about what's old, it's thinking about like before life on this planet. Like, it's thinking
Mm,
about like, oh, I remember when land first, yeah, I remember when we first rose above the waters. Land's time scale is
right.
millennia. It is like hundreds of thousands of years. So for us, it's been between 1,000 and 2,000 years that most land has had ritual on it or has had
Mhm.
reverence of, like a community, like the true mainstream people are using and working with land
Right.
spiritually. It's been about 1,000 to 2,000 years, depending where we talk about. So that's a long time for humans. But for the land, that's like, oh, it's a little while. So, but it's not that bad. So, like, the reaction I often get when I do trance work at like a sacred site in Greece that hasn't been excavated yet. So it's just a bunch of like little peaks of rocks, but I can use trance to understand more about what was done at that location or who lived there or what their rituals were. The land, I'm over there like goosebumps on my goosebumps, like I can't believe this. It's been over 2,000 years. I'm the first priestess to bring a drum here again. The land's reaction is, "Oh, good, you're back." As if we went for a bathroom break. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So I
Right.
think it's the same here with these beautiful wolves being reintroduced, at Yosemite and all these things. Like, I
Mhm.
think the land is like, oh, it's been a little while, but glad to see one of you guys roaming around me here.
Cool.
I think it's
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that was a really good viewpoint. I'm glad I like thought of that to ask you because I feel like that's a cool connection. Like as we're talking, I like didn't even realize, just like yeah, and I hope one day that the red wolves can be returned more to the East Coast. Like I don't
I
know,
need
I
to
get
look
that
that up. I
feel.
don't think I'm like familiar with this at all.
Yeah. They're really cool looking too. So I went in November of 2024, so like last year. And I visited my friend Aspen. She's a wildlife photographer and guide in North Carolina, and she was very kind to take me out in this national refuge, Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge. And this is the only place in the world where there are wild red wolves, and there's only like 17 of them, like a very small amount, and we saw them off in the distance. So just to be able, like, not up close, but like just to be able to see them was incredible.
Wow.
And we saw so much other really beautiful wildlife, all these really big, chunky black bears and everything like that. I come from Long Island, so there's not those big, like we get deer and things like that. Like we have raccoons, but um, we don't have like those bigger animals. It was the first time I actually saw a black bear, which was very cool. But yeah, there's such a small population, but it would just be amazing to see them back on their natural landscape, and having that again, that connection back between, the land and like the animals that had represented them for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes me think too, I don't know if you're familiar with Dave the Bard's music, but he wrote a song called Spirit of Albion,
Mhm.
and it's about England and how, like, the chorus is, the crane, the wolf, the bear, and the boar no longer dwell upon these shores. They say the goddess and god have gone, but I tell you they live on, for in the cities and hills and in circles of stone, the voices of the old ways, the spirit of Albion is calling us home.
Whoa, I just got chills.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Chills.
surprised I remembered it
Yeah.
all without singing it, but
Wow.
I listen to that song like once a week because I get hit with these like waves of sadness for that, like for the creatures that we
Yeah.
won't see and for even every generation, like the bird song that oh, it like really gets me emotional. Like just the bird
Yeah.
song that our kids won't hear, you know?
I
And like
know.
it's very likely that kids born after 2010 will, when they're adults, there will no longer be wild elephants or giraffes or big cats because of the way
Wow.
the world is evolving. Like,
Wow.
how is that even fathomable? But I think the only thing that gives me hope is that the land will not forget. The water certainly won't forget. And nature will always, it's so cliche, but nature really will always find a way. We
Yeah.
will lose out as a human species, and that's the sad part. And we're the ones causing it for ourselves. Like, we are only hurting ourselves
Right.
with these choices because the land will figure it out. Like, that's the only comfort I have is the land remembers and it will bring everybody home.
It reminds me of the story from, I don't know if you read the book Women Who Run with the Wolves,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it reminds me of actually La Loba, like, and how the bones of all of those creatures are still embedded in the land, and how she sings her song over the bones to like reinvigorate their spirit. And I feel like people could still do that and connect with those animals that aren't necessarily physically there, but their soul, their spirit, their essence are still connected in the soil, with their bones having gone and back to the earth. Like, that's how those spirits are still there. So like I'm like even having chills like saying it, like even in
Yeah.
those places in like England, like where there are talks of reintroductions of wolves, and first they're trying to focus on like the lynx and things like that, but you can still connect with those animals. Their spirits, their essence is embedded, like, and like you said, it's just a blink of time for the land does
Yeah.
not forget the way that we have forgotten, or what a great point that you said, what the land thinks is old and what we think is old, totally different. Hi, wild ones. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. This episode is sponsored by my clothing brand FemmeSauvage, and you can find a discount code and link in the description. So check it out. We have a lot of amazing designs, and $5 of the proceeds goes to different charities. So please feel free to check it out and enjoy the rest of the episode. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And like those creatures were on that land so much longer than any of our human civilizations. Oh, that really gets me. Like, I'm literally crying. It just makes me so sad that like we can't go
I
outside
know.
and like watch bison like roam. Like, I don't know. It just,
I know. You know what?
it's such a
I think it's
travesty.
like right, like it's the fast paced nature of right now, and just we have to slow down, and like the art of, I think, and I'm sure you probably agree with me, the art of connecting with the land is being able to. It's like the art of noticing something, or you notice that bird, or like you notice the little baby bird and the mama feeding together.
Yeah.
You notice the bees around you. You give them a little bit of water with it, you put the rocks in the water so they don't fall. Like, just slowing down and like recognizing and like being able to notice, the art of noticing. That's what nature is. Like, oh, what's that sound? What's the path that the squirrel takes, in my backyard? Like, I watch the squirrel jump on the fence and then jump on the pine tree. Like, and being just like appreciative, like, sometimes I do say like, oh, we don't have any like bigger animals by us, but like I'm like, but I talk with the bees and the little gray catbird or the cardinals. Like, I have so many cardinals by us, which is very cool. And you know just to be appreciative of what's around you, because you never know when it's gonna go either.
Yeah. 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 That's the reality of it. Like, nature just gives us the gift of presence.
Yeah.
That art of noticing is such a deep presence. And I think it sounds so reductive, but I honestly feel like the biggest solution to all the world's problems is people spending more time outside.
Yeah, for real. And
Like,
science backs that. Bird
yeah.
song's good for us, ocean waves are good for us, sunlight's good for us. Like, and like, gotta protect yourself, like maybe not in the middle of the desert, but you
Yeah.
know,
It's
yeah.
like it's just so important. And it's wild because like no pun intended, because like my whole work is like teaching the path of the sacred wild. So I will have people sign up for courses with me, do a container class, and the first lesson might be like, go outside, and they're like, oh, I can't go outside. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, are you like I'm open to working through accommodations. I taught special ed in Baltimore for several years, like in a previous life. Like I'm always here to accommodate. So I'm like, oh, okay, like are we a quadriplegic? Are you in. And they're like, oh no, it's just cold right now. It's winter. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, put gloves on. I don't know what to go outside. You have to go outside if you want to talk to
Sorry.
the land. Like it's crazy, like the excuses
Yeah.
we put in our own way. I've even found myself at places like that where I'm like, oh man, I really want to take my drum out, but it's gonna rain. Like, that's why I'm a huge advocate for synthetic skin drums. Just bring them
Mhm.
outside in the weather. Now, okay, there's safety considerations of, okay, is lightning gonna actually hit me? Maybe. Okay, don't go outside. But for
Sure.
the most part, like we are able to just go outside more than we think we are. Like there's a lot of even foraging. People are so nervous to forage, me included. Like I would never pick a mushroom, for example, because I'm too afraid. I don't unless I'm with someone who knows better. Um,
Yeah.
but like as a species, we're like, oh, foraging's dangerous. I wouldn't even try it. And it's like, yeah, but we're eating. We don't eat like our ancestors would have had the opposite perspective of like you don't even know where that was grown and you're gonna eat it.
Mm.
So it's all a
So
perspective
true.
shift. Like
Yeah.
I call it the sacred wild mindset. Like having the earth in your mind first in the things you
Yeah.
do. It's actually kind of hard. It takes a long time, and people still ask me questions. I'm like, that's a good point. Yeah, I should. You're right. That should be part of the questioning we have. Like yeah, there's a lot encompassed in that, but yeah,
Yeah.
going
Like do
outside first.
yeah,
Put that in your
do
mind.
do hard things. Like our
Yeah.
ancestors had to live through the uncomfortable. I'm like someone that's like you have to do uncomfortable things to be able to access the best points of life, like you
Yes.
have to go
Yes.
through uncomfortable things emotionally, psychologically, all of these things to gain deeper knowledge. Like my husband says to me all the time, um like because I'm definitely a deep feeler, and I'm sure you relate in that way, but
Oh yeah.
and our listeners too, but it's both a blessing and a curse to see and feel everything so deeply, so it's a balance, everything's a balance, but like, do the hard things, do the uncomfortable things. On the other side of that, you're gonna find something, like you're gonna find like core memories and amazing things. Like I'm sure, like when you're taking people up like hikes and going to secret places, it's not always very easy, right? Like you have to like
Right.
walk, you have to sweat, you have to, but that's what the wilds requires as like a sacrifice to be able to connect with it. Do you find that like you have to give a little something, right? Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
what people are always talking about, like you said with the water, right? Like got to give a little something to the land in order to be like, okay, I can respect you. Like here's how I can connect with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it is that comfort zone that we have to leave as well. Like I see that more in I'll be honest, I see it more in American clients than anything in the world, like that any other nationality. And it's because America is so comfortable. Like people who've
Yeah.
never left America might not even know how comfortable your reality is. Like central air, you ain't gonna really find that in Europe. Like even places that it's very hot, you aren't gonna find central air. When I lived in the Middle East is a luxurious place, but there is still a level of comfort of like just like there's an American mindset of comfort that you don't even find in the Middle East. Like you still don't have central air in the Middle East. You still don't have an AC running even when you're not home. Like that's a very American thing to be like, this is temperature controlled. Like you just wouldn't do it.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah, like you have AC in the Middle East because I mean, truly, you wouldn't survive if you didn't. It's so hot. It's like
Yeah.
120 degrees in the summers.
Crazy.
Yeah, like you would die, like for sure. So you do turn it on, but it's per room. It's a split level like thing, and they just have them per room. So like there's just American comforts, like online shopping, same day delivery, like it's just wild the things and like scented
Right.
candles in like a bajillion scents, like in Greece. you have IKEA, and IKEA comes out with 2 cents a summer or a season, and that's it. That's all you have. Like you won't find scented candles made by a boutique, this and that. Like even just like that sort of stuff. Like America has a lot of material things that you
Hmm.
wouldn't find in Europe. Like we don't have online shopping at all in Greece, for example. Certain countries in Europe have online shopping, but it's only the ones like Germany, like the big ones that we'd think of as European countries. Um, so anyway, all that to say, like I think when your life is just so comfortable, even if you're not fully aware of how comfortable it really is, it becomes even scarier to leave the comfort zone. And that's biological. Like that's not
Right.
on you consciously. That's your ego being like, "Hey, this is good. This is safe. We're good. We don't need to nope, it's raining outside. You're good inside right now." Like we have
Sure.
to supersede that ego and say, "Thank you for protecting me. I love you. Come back when I'm being chased by a bear. But right now, we're gonna go outside in this light drizzle
Yeah.
under my porch and enjoy the weather. So sometimes it does take a little like reasoning with the self to be like, that comfort zone needs to be left
Yeah.
stepped.
Like, okay, like, and also like break it down, right? Like, why am I having that resistance to go outside? Is it because what, I don't want my hair to get wet? Where, like, am I going somewhere? Like, okay, but I can take 5, 10 minutes, or is that not relevant right now? Am I just using that as an excuse? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Chat it out. Turn to the ego. I say that to people like, just turn to your ego self and just have that conversation. Your conscious self with your ego self. Because our ego self isn't conscious, but we can
Right.
make the mistake of thinking that it is conscious. Even our anxieties, like I struggle with anxiety, and nature has helped
Same.
me more than any other form of Western approach to healing anxiety has. And working outside, just sitting outside, like I will feel better faster. But there still is like that conversation with my anxiety that I think it's my conscious self, but it's not. It's my anxiety. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if I go outside now, I'm not going to have time, so I shouldn't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not going to have time? I'll set a 10-minute timer. It will go off, and then I'll go inside and do the thing I have to do. Like,
Right.
like it's also sitting down with that anxiety or that depression or whatever that other, I don't want to call it a beast, but kind of like, it's that other creature in the head that you have to be like, all right, everybody get a seat at the table. We're going to talk this out and we're going to
Yes.
just go outside.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, like almost like it helps to like personify like your inner, I don't know, like inner anxieties, or like, I'm sure some people would call them demons, but I hesitate to
I
call it that because I don't like.
They're not bad. They're not
They're not
bad. They're just,
bad. They're trying to protect you or show you something. Like emotions are always trying to show you something. So that's why I had a hard time like coming up with a word. But like personify them. Like why are they trying to block you, into going outside? But it's always there if you want to connect with it. I want to also get to ask you about, some of the sacred places that you've been that have like really resonated with you, um that you've been able to physically travel to, and which ones like stick out the most, and what are some of those places?
yes. So, okay. So my favorite place to sacred travel is Greece for
Yeah.
a few reasons. Like one, it's just such a safe country. Like you can just like it's so safe. Like you can just drive forever and like you would be safe anywhere you go. Like there's no bad parts of anywhere. Like it's just so safe. So that's what I love about Greece on a practical side. But also like everything has a myth and a story. So you'll like perfect example. I was on my way home from a sacred site that I had, gone to on purpose. And on my drive home, I drove past this like way too cool to not stop cave. And I go over and it has this little sign in Greek, the cave of Dirki. And I'm like, what? So I look it up, and it was a dragon's den in ancient times. And there was a
Well,
princess who had a friendship with the dragon. And so they named the cave after her. And I was like, this is so cool. I'm just driving. This is just like on the road. Like, so I love that about Greece is like the land is so sacred. There's so much going on. And they were such a prolific writing culture in ancient Greece that we do have a lot of evidence, quote unquote evidence. We don't need evidence that places are sacred. I'll say
right.
that too. Like the most sacred place in the world could be a grove none of us have ever heard of because, it only speaks to those it speaks to.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it is
good
cool in
point.
Greece
Yeah.
that there's a lot of like documented ones, and like you can get a history of other people finding it special too. Um, so my favorite sacred place in Greece, if I had to really, 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 really just pick one, is, oh, it's so cliche, but it's Delphi. It's
Yeah.
it's Delphi. I mean, you just can't beat it. There's I take pilgrimages there. I used to call them retreats. I now call them immersive pilgrimages because
Mm,
they're not vacations. Like you said, they're out of the comfort zone. You know, it's a country you probably don't speak the language in. You know, it's different foods and it's wild. Greece is wild. Unless you're within Athens, you're going to be over an hour from a hospital. You're going to have less access to things. Like I always say, if you're going to Greece, you got to bring all your own medicines because they're not going to exist here.
mm,
So, like, that's another thing about American comfort. There's a lot of medicines that only exist for Americans because the patents are not available for other countries. Um,
wow.
yeah, like basic ones too, like ibuprofen.
Oh
We
my
don't have it.
gosh.
We have paracetamol, but we don't have the same exact thing. Sudafed,
Wow.
yeah, and then also all SSRIs. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. But so Delphi's amazing because it's not just one site. Like in ancient times, like prehistoric times, it was a priestess land, and the actual temple of the goddess was down below the hill. It's a hillside, Delphi. So like the bottom side of the hill, which today is called the Tholos or Athena Pronea. It's like a temple that was most recently, meaning like 300 BC, dedicated to Athena.
Mm,
But before that, it was a Gaia temple. It was just a grove, a sacred grove.
wow.
So you have layers, literally. You can visibly see the layers of the history going up the mountainside. You're like, okay, and there's what the Romans built, there's some Byzantine things, and then you keep going and you see Corinthian things, and then you see pre-archaic Greek things, and it's just unbelievable to witness so many generations of history in one place. And in between that walk between the two different sacred sites of Delphi, you also have the Castalia Springs, which I've shared on my
Mm.
Instagram, but they have started to flow again. They've been
Whoa.
yeah, they've been a trickle since like the year 300. Like I think it was exactly 363. That was when the Christians really ramped up essentially persecution on anyone trying to use Delphi in sacred ways. And
Mm,
the Pythia gave her last prophecy, and that week or month after her prophecy was that the spring shall cease to flow. And there was, within a week or a month, an earthquake that dammed up the spring.
wow.
So it was trickling in this one direction for a long time, but not into the sacred baths or the areas that we, as priestesses, would use in ancient times. Now it's flowing down towards that. So it's
Wow.
still, I when you're there, you feel this like building pressure. Like I feel like it's gonna really go. And if you climb all the way up to the top of Delphi, past Apollo's temple and up towards the stadium, which is the most ancient part of that hillside of Delphi, because it's a whole town. It was, a massive spiritual center. There is another source of the spring. The same spring, like it just, it's a mountain, so it kind of goes that direction too. Both sides, the western and eastern side of the spring, are starting to burst forth again. So
Wow.
Delphi has a special power right now. Like when I say started to burst forth, it's like less than a year that it's been doing this. Because I was there
Wow.
in October and it wasn't doing it. So sometime over the winter it started.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
How amazing. Wow.
it's wild.
It reminds me of, I think I saw online like a little mini documentary about, uh, more people in Greece. You see it in, like Norway or like people wanting, or in Iceland that they opened up a first church to, or not like a church, but like a dedication to Odin. Like there's all of these calls to and I think that this has been a time there's like a breakthrough, which it really makes sense why maybe there's the springs coming back, is that we're really starting to connect more with, our ancient past and like those ancient ways. I think that we're coming to a crossroads in regards to like how can we keep some things modern, some things that are good for us, but now we went too far into modern and we need to, take a step back, slow down, and connect with the land and nature again. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yes.
Wow.
We are in a time of great remembering. Like I really don't think that's something we could have said even pre-COVID. Like COVID
Yeah.
was a great awakening. And now that people are proverbially stretching their arms, because again, we got to think of it in time scale of the earth. Like it's not going to be like I get a vision, you get a vision, 75 other women get a vision overnight tonight, and then tomorrow the revolution starts. Like it's that's not how it's going to go, for better and worse. So I think like 2020 was like, ugh, like stretching the arms, like just waking up. And now 5 years later, it's like, all right, like we've poured our coffee, like we're ready. We're starting to get ready to go for the day, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the pace of it. And oh, it gives me goosebumps. And I think that's why
Yeah.
like I'm seeing it in like people our age that we are kind of spearheading this. And
Yes.
yeah, there's so much I could say on this. Like I also see podcasts as like a revival of the oral tradition that our
Ooh.
ancestors used.
Yeah.
Because it's so new for us to consider written record as authority. Like, in fact, it
Mhm.
was the opposite for most of its existence. Like, people were like, I can't trust
Right.
that stuff. Socrates was like, writing things down is going to be the death of philosophy. Like, he literally said that. And yet
Wow.
today, like, as an author, I'm with Llewellyn as my publisher for Sacred Wild. And they're always like, oh, we need a source for that. And I'm like, my source is I went to the museum and it was written on the museum plaque and they're like, we need it from a book. And I'm like, that is so stupid. It's written on like, so I had to literally like do an interview with the curator of a museum to use the source, even though it was on their thing. So you run into
Right.
like the opposite end of that today too, where we don't trust oral tradition as much. And I think podcasts are part of
Yes.
writing
Yeah,
that course.
that's a really good point. And there's also, I talked about this recently with one of my other guests, Nick, and he was, he wrote a book about all of the myths and legends of like the national parks, but how important like storytelling is and like that oral tradition is like storytellers have their own version and like how they sit with the story and then present it to you, and then you as the listener pick what symbols are popping out to you. So like that also is like such an important piece of like the oral tradition, right? Like being
Yeah.
able to communicate that as well, and having, I guess that's the whole point, is like having our unique, perspective and storytelling aspect. Obviously this sometimes that can go awry, right? Like, with I guess like news outlets and like spinning the truth, right? But when it's supposed to be told in a symbolic sense, in like a true storytelling sense, like that's, I think, in its essence what it's supposed to be, is like our own unique telling and then listening and respecting what that story is trying to give to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, like, throughout history, shamanic teachings have been told through story as well. Like,
Right.
and it's interesting too, like you said, like, we could do this wrong where the news will give us their version of the truth. I think that's the interesting difference too between contemporary storytelling versus like ancestral storytelling, ancient storytelling.
Right.
Is like today, as the author of the story, we're trying to give a truth. Whereas our ancestors were telling the story for you to find your truth as the listener.
Mm,
So you can't
yes.
skew that because there's multiple truths to be found. Whereas
Right.
today it's like, here's the one truth. And it really all goes back to like searching for oneness versus searching for multiplicity. And our ancestors weren't that obsessed with oneness. There was no concept of like one true God. So there was no concept of one true anything. Whereas today we've kind of Age of Pisces really led us into that singular truth thing stuff. And now we're
Right.
leaving that. It's Age of Aquarius. It's you do you in your way, I do me in my way, and we see where that meets together or maybe doesn't. So I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah, there's such a
interesting
power in
times.
uniqueness. Like there's no, like, literally I say this all the time, but like there's no one else like you. Like how you grew up, like even like you specifically, right? Like I was saying you as in our listeners, but like you specifically, you know, you lived in the United States, you traveled to Greece, like you lived in the Middle East, like you have all of these different, you were a teacher first and then you became a priestess. Like you specifically have a very cool, unique thing, unique past and story. And then the way that you showcase that and, put that together with the offerings that you have now and like the book that you're writing, there's nobody's perspective like yours. Like, even for people listening, like that's why there's no one else like you. Like your interests make you so unique, and like what you can put out there. Like, don't think, oh, someone else is going to do it. You do it. Like, you
Yes.
have the power as like you and uniqueness. And like sometimes that's why, like, you know, there's like all of these like, you know, people out there being like, oh, follow me, or like I can teach you this. And it's like there's nothing like, you know, like gurus and stuff, but like the only guru you need is yourself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like I always say, like if you are called to a task, like maybe you keep getting this idea for a book, or you keep getting this really clear vision of a painting you want to paint, or your garden is just tugging at you to make this thing look this certain way. That idea came to you for a reason. So
Yeah.
you are the one who's meant to do it. So,
Mhm.
pushing that off, or the imposter syndrome of, oh, why me? Who am I to tell this story? Who am I to write? Well, the idea chose you. Who are you to question the idea? That's the
Yeah.
other way to turn it around.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I guess this is a little off the subject, but going back to like, you know, sacred lands and like where you've been, what you said that you also went to Ireland as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've been to like, I haven't counted, but I think like 40 countries. Something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I always say that Ireland is kind of like my favorite place in the whole world.
It's so
I'm
special.
also a big part of my nationality is Irish, and I have family that still live over there. So
Oh,
the first time
nice.
I ever, you know, and especially when I was thinking about interviewing or, you know, talking with you today, I don't like to say interview because I think it's just a chat, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah, like the first time I ever went to Ireland and I landed on the plane, it felt like speaking of remembering, it really felt like a coming home. Like, oh my goodness, like I've never felt so at home at a place that I had never been before. And I've been to Ireland a bunch of times, once with my aunt and uncle, you know, a couple times with my husband, but I went once by myself. And that was one of the most powerful trips I had ever done. And I just remember, have you ever been to the Hill of Tara?
No. It's like yeah, I know. There's that and the whole, like, the Blarney Stone. Like, I haven't done
Yeah.
any of
I've
that
never been to
area.
the Blarney Stone either, but the Hill of Tar I drove to myself, and it's actually behind a church. And it was mind-boggling to me that I was able to go and walk through there. You kind of walk through a little graveyard, or at least at the time that was the path past this church, and there's just the Stone of Destiny, the Leafal, I believe it's called, and the bricks around it, and I could not believe I was there by myself for like hours and I couldn't leave. I was so connected, and I felt the thrumming like of from this stone in the middle of the place, and there was just sheep all around, but the hills, like that's where, you know, supposedly like ancient kings were, but there was just something so ancient, and like the remembering, like I still really like physically remember that feeling like inside of me. And there was just like one guy that came up, and like it was so cool, and like he was just giving me like a little bit of like history and backstory, and then like I think there was like a sense of respect, like he knew I was like taking it all in, and then he left me by myself again. um it was just like such a powerful place, and I think that, you know, people listening, like you can make that place in your house, or you can, like you said, like astral travel to that place, or you can make an effort, you know, do a hard thing, and, you know, maybe save up or look into trying to do like one of those pilgrimages to a site that's really calling to you. Because I think that was one of the places that, you know, when you're younger you don't realize, you know, it's very hard to be like, oh, I'm myself, right? And recognize those things that make you you. But then as you look back on it, like I feel like that was a very significant point in my sense of being that like started my journey of like connecting back to like the wild and ancient sources of like land, animals, all of that.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that too. Like it's interesting thinking of your experience there too, because you said you drove there on your own. So
Yeah.
you were out of your comfort zone, I imagine. It's the other side of the road too. Like I've been afraid to drive in Ireland because they drive on the other side of the road.
I was like so comfortable, or ironically, but it's one of those things that I feel like you talk about how like the universe aligns to make sure that it
Yeah,
works. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel like that experience was probably like extra powerful because it was so it was a sacrifice to get there. Like it was a huge like mental offering of stress
Yeah.
in a way to be like I'm going to do this though and I'm going to have all day here and it's going to be for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. What are some sacred sites that you have in your mind that you would really love to get to experience?
Oh, that I haven't been to yet. It's interesting because something that's really been calling me and I'm now that I'm speaking out to the universe, maybe it will make it possible, but I want to go I want to go to a glacier.
Mm,
Somewhere that because when I now I'm at a point with my land spirits work where I want to meet all the land spirits. Like I want to meet all the
yeah.
kinds of land that can exist. And glaciers are so fascinating to me because they're not land. It's
Right.
water. But
Ah,
land is growing on it and it's moving. Like what?
cool.
I want to go there. I want to meditate there. Like a glacier, that is some power. And I wrote about them for my book, and I found someone who actually recorded it too. But glaciers make music when they move.
Mm,
They actually make like a sound as they move.
wow.
And if you look it up, like glacial songs, like you'll find a couple people on SoundCloud who have recorded them and played them. So I really, really want to meditate and journey with the glaciers. That's what's
Oh,
calling
that's
me.
so cool. That's really cool. Yeah, and I love that perspective too. And it's like, see, like you'll never be bored with the wild or nature. Like you can just
Never.
keep digging and going. And like that's the part that I do love about like our modern times, like how cool that they were able to record the sounds. Like that's
Yeah, and
really neat.
like we can do this. We can solo travel as women to sacred sites across almost every continent. Come on, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Like when I think of like it has never happened. I feel confident saying it has never happened in human history that women could single women, solo women can travel alone to sacred sites across
Yeah.
the globe. And you don't have to be a queen or anything to do it. You can just do it. You can just be a person who does it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say is if you are somebody who's like, oh, pilgrimage sounds hard, I don't know, but I'm really called, but like if the buts are what you're doing more than like really thinking about how it could work. If you're listening to this and you're an American, you don't even need a visa to travel to most of these sacred places we've been discussing. You can
Mhm.
literally just buy it and there are endless credit options and payment plan options and savings accounts. You can just go. This isn't the case in most countries. You can just go to a bank and be like, I'd like to set up a savings account, and they will do it for you here. Do it. Get a high yield savings account that you can't even touch for 2 years and just put $5 a week into that thing. And guess what? In 2 years, you will be not moving, you will be traveling to the sacred pilgrimage that you're craving. So it
Yeah.
has never been more possible. Who knows how long it will be this possible? Do it. I
Yeah.
cannot stress enough how important it is to just follow those callings to work with land, however that calling is coming to you.
I feel like it'll change you in the best way possible. Like you'll just be so rewarded for doing like hard work and being able to go there. And like especially if you're someone that notices things. Like I think people that aren't so deep or good at noticing things, they'll be like, "Okay, well, it's just rocks." Well, did you sit? Did you look inside? Did you feel like you got to be someone that's the art of noticing. But I think that even if you're not, I think that that's the pathway to like healing too, is looking inward. And I think that going to these places and being in awe and getting that energy from that space helps you to do that. Like, I mean, even my trip to the Hill of Tara really transformed me. It really, I think, began my journey of being a wild woman, and being able to, oh, okay, I can do things by myself. I like going by myself. I enjoy my own company. Like that sense of like sovereignty and like,
Yeah.
self. like was like the first time I ever did something like that, and it was really powerful. Do that for yourself, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Do that for yourself. You deserve that.
Yeah, absolutely. Elyse, that I feel like that's like a great place to pin the podcast for today. But I feel like I can talk to you for hours on end. I would love to.
Me too.
I definitely would love to have you back on again when your time allows. You know, we'll
Oh,
talk about it.
absolutely.
This was so great, but please tell people listening where they can connect with you, maybe book a pilgrimage, all of that stuff.
Yes. So, my website and my Instagram handle and all the things is Seeking Numina. So seeking, and then N as in Nancy, U, M as in Mary, I, N as in Nancy, A. And Numina means spirits of place. So that's what I do. I seek them and I help you do the same. So I teach online classes as well. So if you are looking for that sisterhood and community and ways to grow your practice and, something outside the box from where you're at, I do teach 3 different container classes a year. My next one is the Witch Codes, which is starting in November. So I'm launching payment plans for them in the next couple of weeks. And I do try to launch things very early. Like my pilgrimages for Greece next year are in May of 2026, but they'll be out by the time this episode comes out. I'm launching payment plans this Friday. So by the time this episode comes out, they will be launched. So, because I really want pilgrimage to be accessible for every single person. And I always say that too. If you're like, this could work, but I need bi-weekly payments or I need, message me. I will come up with a custom solution for you because I really, really, really want people to answer these calls. And we can't let the mundane things like finances get in the way of those things. So I'm a big believer in that because money comes and goes, but our time and our energy, that's all we have. That's our real resources. Money is a false resource. Time and energy yields money.
And health,
money comes and goes.
Being able to physically be able to go and do these things. We don't have that forever either. So that's a good point.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. And time, like literal time, like if you're doing family planning and stuff, like if you're getting the call right now, there could be a very good reason that it feels urgent. So I really, really want people to answer them if they're feeling it. So yeah, find me on Instagram. I'm always open in my DMs too, at Seeking Numina and seekingnumina.com. And yeah, would love to meet you, listeners. I'm a chatty person. Like I actually want to hear about your connection to the earth and
Me too. I'm always open. Like I love chatting with people and connecting with people, and just the point that like everybody's unique. So I love hearing and chatting and like what makes you you. So I'm the same way. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure to link everything below, just so people can easily click it. But I always like everyone to say it too. So if people are only listening, that they can remember. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Elyse. I'll definitely want to have you back on again. That was amazing. And I hope people listening really got a lot out of that, and to go check out Seeking Numina on all socials. And thank you so much, Wild Ones, for listening. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Flowing to the sea, I feel the energy of life force flowing